What is your business bucket list?
Hi, welcome to the special episode of the Splendid Live Show. My name is Timing. I'm your host, and I'm also the publisher of the Splendid Business and Life magazine, available on the Apple newsstand. Today, my guest is Eric Esbeck. He's also known as your Next Move business coach, and his website is on yournextmoveexpert.com. He offers programs for people who are determined to start a solo service-based business and want support getting started. His tagline is, well, he says, we help entrepreneurs launch businesses they love. Welcome, Eric.
Well, thank you, Ming. It's so wonderful to be here, and I really appreciate the experience of a Google Hangout. It's my first.
Yeah. So I'm glad are trying this out. It's a very cool tool. You're in the East Coast, I'm in the West Coast, and we get to meet on this platform.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, since you are about helping people start successful businesses, what are some of the common characteristics of successful people?
You know, there's one that really stands out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting. Successful people ask for what they want. It sounds so simple, but it really is amazing. A lot of people will either not ask, or they'll kind of play around with the idea, hint, those sort of things. But successful people get it right out there and say, this is what I'm looking for. And it's amazing. It really is an incredibly powerful little tip.
Okay, so one of the characteristics is ask for what you want. So to be
Yes.
able to receive help or support, or just to put out what is it you're going to work on out there. Is that it?
That is it. That is
Okay.
it. And that's the key thing that I would go with. Hmm.
Okay. All right. So tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get started being your next move business coach?
Well, it's been a kind of an interesting path. When I first started thinking about why do I even want to have a business of my own, I realized as I was actually working this out with some other people that are fellow entrepreneurs, it was kind of hidden from my view until I had that conversation. I realized this from my dad. Um,
Hmm.
Years ago, he was born in Germany, but came over to the U.S. When he was between his eighth and ninth birthday on it, and at that time it was by ship. And his birthday's in January, so you can kind of imagine that cold passage. And he ended up becoming a chemical researcher, a chemist, and very successful in that right. But he had this immigrant dream of starting a business of his own. So when I was fairly young, he actually conceived of an idea of an amphibious motorhome.
Amphibious motorhome. Oh, cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. He designed it. He built a prototype. He got the patents. It's a 24-foot long motorhome, but it has a kind of a boat hull. You drive it in the water, pull up the wheels, and it's a boat. And I
Yeah.
actually have pictures. I don't have them in front of me here, but I have pictures of, it going into the water and its maiden voyage, going around, coming out. Have pictures of my mom and dad at some boat shows where they were showing it off. It was very popular. And here's the thing. He was all ready to launch this business and start manufacturing, and he had a whole plan for how it was going to play out.
Uh-huh.
And it was right in the 70s, and the
Mhm.
first oil crisis hit. And
Yeah.
this was it was a gas hog. Plus, it used a lot of petroleum products, and he had a
Mm.
young family. So he just thought, I can't do this right now. And so he
Mm.
backed off. And then a couple of years later, he still had that dream, and he redid things and was even better prepared. And he was literally within a month of signing the papers to get manufacturing space and take out the loans. And the second, even worse oil crisis hit, and he backed off, and he never started that business. Never. It was one of those things where he he ended up doing some other things. He ended up going into business with my uncle, and he did well with that. He retired from his chemical research job and went into business with my uncle. But it was one of those things where when we moved our home from Charleston, West Virginia to Cleveland, Ohio, we took the boat along with us and put it in a storage yard and kept it there for many years, and finally gave it to the Western Reserve Historical Society, and they have it preserved. But it's one of those things where he had that dream, and I realized that all my life I grew up with the idea of having a business, and it just kind of internalized with me. So I had a corporate career that was pretty interesting, but always creating new businesses and new products and other sort of things within the companies I was in. And finally I reached a point where I just said, if not now, when? And this is and I picked this business of helping people to get their businesses started and launched because it's just it's something that I've been involved in so many years in so many different ways, and it's in my heart it's just a wonderful thing when I see somebody that has that same kind of a dream and is able to actually bridge the gap from dream to there it is. I'm out there in the world and I'm starting to have the opportunity to be successful. So it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you sitting on this before you actually, hung out your shingle as a business, coach?
Yes, I understand. I actually thought about starting a business back in my early 20s after I had gotten out of college, and I kind of danced around the idea of it, but by the time I really got to the point where I was seriously thinking about it, I had a young family myself, and I was able to find opportunities within the companies I was in to be an intrapreneur as opposed to an entrepreneur, where I was doing that work within those companies. And so it's been a long thing for me too. And I finally, like I say, got to the point where I said, it's like, if you have a sore tooth and you just keep picking at it and you can't let it go, that's like it is for me. I know that I've kind of tried to thought about pulling away, and I keep coming back. So I jumped in.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about how you work with others right now. So tell me about your work and how you support others.
Sure. I should say one of the other things that's another thread of this is that some years ago I started doing some personal development courses with Landmark Education, and one of the things that you have the opportunity if you're in certain programs is to coach people. And so, about 15 years ago, I started on that track, and I'll say that it's one of those things that I just, not only did I love it, but how you get feedback from people and they tell you, wow, you really are good at this, and that was something that also showed up. So that combination of things and being able to the experience of seeing people click like that is just it really it floats my boat. To go back to my dad's analogy, I guess, story. And so I have I can help people figure out where they are in terms of starting a business, and basically get a snapshot, like where do they want to go, what kind of goals do they want, get a snapshot of where they are, and then start taking a look at, okay, so of the things that are there to get you out into the world as quickly and efficiently as possible, what's left, and what do you want to tackle right now, and let's look at the options and pick something and get you going. What's going to give you the biggest kick to get you rolling? So that's the style that I approach things with, and I have some things laid out for folks about the step-by-step kind of approach to figuring out what things need to be done and kind of the steps or stages that they need to go through in order to come up with a business idea they love, put together a plan, like basically a business plan, build that, and make the necessary preparations, and then it really comes down to get some early customers. That's critical. Your first sale, a huge step, and then finally, as you've had a chance to, that's going to be where the rubber meets the road and the reality of all that planning and preparation comes together, and you find out if people love what you want and are seeking it, and then from there you can adjust and tune, and then it's time to launch. So that's the kind of philosophy that I have with things and helping people to move along that path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. So, I want to know what kind of challenges have you faced in starting your business?
Ah, yes. Well, uh, besides the things about young kids and those sort of things, one of the other things, and I'll share something very personal about myself here, is that about 8 years ago I was diagnosed with a cancer called multiple myeloma, and I was in a pretty serious situation. It causes um, uh, uh, tumors in your bones, and you can run into other kind of issues with kidney problems and stuff. And it turns out I had a tumor in my spine, and I was really late. I was on bed rest and back surgery and stem cell transplants and all that sort of thing, and still stayed with my corporate job, even though I'll have to say, when I was in that situation, I was on about 5 months of a hiatus from work while I dealt with that. You know, one of the things I did was go out and look at, are there franchises that I could get into? Like, I still had that dream. It was kind of interesting, but then, my sensible side came back and said, you can go back to this corporate job and go off, come back off of disability and get in and do, and it's a good income and so forth. But I'll say that in the midst of all of that, it made me realize, I can't. All those things about living to a ripe old age, and my dad has just turned 99, and I think, wow, I have this long potential planning horizon, and a lot of that stuff got dashed. I mean, it just it didn't have that same kind of air of certainty that it had before I was faced with all this, and it also, I have to deal with a few things that are kind of fallout from having gone through that experience. That I think, well, there's certain lifestyle things that I need to, I want to have, and there's also some dreams I have about the things that I want to be able to do, and so as I contemplated all of that and kind of bring that to bear when I'm thinking about my business, it creates kind of my special requirements, like those things that I want to have as part of how my business looks and how I conduct it. Doing something like this is perfect for me, for example. Being able to interact with people, in a hangout kind of arrangement like this from home. Wow, what a life that is, right? And then you can have the freedom to kind of do that from a variety of places if you have an internet connection. So that's when you say what am I, what sort of things am I facing or dealing with, or what kind of considerations as I'm starting my business? It's not only wanting to get out there and do the things that I talked about that I love, but also how do I want to, what special considerations do I want to have, and how can I make some money and have some fun along the way? So it's an interesting combination, and I think if I think about other people, everybody's got something. There's like, I know women who have started businesses who think, I've got young kids right now, and I'd love to be able to get out and just kind of go do whatever I need to do, but I want to be there for them and be a very successful and effective businesswoman in the process. And there are guys that have different factors that they want to consider that are important to them, and it's just everybody's got stuff that they want to factor in, and so that's part of what we really take a look at when we think about what do you want for your business, and that comes back to that fundamental question: what do you want? It's it's worth taking a time to think about it.
And you wrote an article about what's on your business bucket list. So maybe you can explain what is that about, because I'm going to be having that article in the next issue of my magazine. So yeah, tell us about that.
Sure, and it's kind of interesting. When I think about my bucket lists, both for my business and my personal life, there's a lot of people may have seen the movie The Bucket List, but it's like, what do you want to do before you die? What are the things that are the most important to you that you want to say check mark, and I've got that taken care of? And And for me, actually, one of the things on my bucket list is starting a successful business. But also, I have two sons that I love dearly, and I want to spend time with them. And I'd like to be able to travel and see different parts of the world, and have a really incredible, juicy relationship with the woman of my dreams, and be able to make a difference with people. And so there's that kind of stuff. And then if I think in terms of like more specific things, I've always wanted to go to New Zealand for whatever reason. I hear it's beautiful.
New Zealand, Lord of the Rings, that's where it was fell.
Yeah, exactly, and other places like that. I mean, I've been to Barcelona a few times, and I thought, if I had all the money in the world, I'd love to go to Barcelona. And I mean, if I had really, literally, if money was no object, I'd rent a place. I'd bring a personal chef and assistant that would either make meals or we could cook together. I'd tell my family and friends, if you want to come, because I've got all the money in the world, I'll fly you over. Don't worry about it. It's on me. We're just going to soak up the culture and do that in Barcelona, maybe go to New Zealand. I probably have a list of like 60 or 70 places that I'd like to visit. I mean, if you're going to dream big, right?
Yeah.
So that's so what's your bucket list? I mean, what is it that's important to you? That's something for folks to ask themselves and for you to ask yourself. If you really let your heart open up and just said anything that was, allowed yourself the freedom to say anything that was dear to your heart and make that list, what a wonderful, wonderful thing. You don't know how it's going to work out, but somehow there's just, things will organize somehow if you hold those things dear and kind of let them be part of you. Somehow, it's amazing. Things will work. If you look at all the areas of your life and all the different places and relationships that are important to you, that's a great place to get started in thinking about your bucket list and what's important.
Yeah, definitely. Bucket list is a great concept. As I was saying, when you have your bucket list, it just helps you plan better, and then you put that intention out there, and then suddenly resources start to appear.
Yes.
So make your bucket list.
Yes, I completely, wholeheartedly agree with you. And the way you put it about putting it out there and then suddenly resources will start to appear. I have to say, I originally, I was trained as an engineer, and then I got into the business side of things and loved it. And had some dream jobs with the work that I did when I got into that. As a product manager, with a hyper startup that was involved with AT&T, and it was a exciting time. And then I took over. I ran some global alliances between some of the biggest corporations in the world for some things, and then I've had a chance now to start my business, and all of that is so exciting. But you don't. So I didn't know that was going to be my path when I started, and it's you start putting things out there, and somehow in the process, my engineering mind doesn't understand it, but my heart knows and accepts, because I see the evidence of, you put things out there, you say what you want, you hold it in your heart, and somehow things organize in ways that I can't explain, and things show up. And all of a sudden, some of those things that, if you were being skeptical or overly practical, you'd be like, well, I'm not even going to allow myself to dream that. But if you do, there's no guarantees, but it's amazing how stuff will show up. It's miraculous to me. And I love the way you put it.
Yeah, I think it also has something to do with you being able to recognize opportunities. Because once you put something out there, then your mind is open to possibilities. Then you say, oh, I could do that. Oh, yeah, I could do this. Things like that.
Right.
Because if you don't have that possibility in your head already, then how do you recognize it when it appears?
Yes. Opportunity favors the prepared mind.
Yeah.
And prepared heart, I'll say. Yeah.
That's true.
I'm completely with you.
Okay, so I'd like to know Are there any um, thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners about, your work or any other things about life?
Sure, sure. Well, you know what I'll do? Um, let me take a few moments and just talk a little bit about how I would suggest people create this bucket list for themselves.
Oh yeah, sure.
Um, so the first thing is the very at the very kind of highest level is back to that fundamental question. Answer the question, what do you want? What things are important to you? What makes you happy? You can ask at that highest level. But if you want to dig down a little bit, take a look at your life. I mean, I would suggest make a list of the relationships that are important to you. Take a look at all the different areas of your life. I mean, I have this work. I do ballroom and Latin dancing socially. I participate in some other clubs and organizations. I have my things that I like to do on a social level. Entertaining and going out with folks. There's all these different areas, and really just take some time to think about, what are those areas of your life and those relationships, and think also, are there some that maybe you don't want to have anymore? Are there some that you'd like that aren't there that you'd like to add?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you have that list, then back to that question number one, what do you want? What is it in each of these areas? How could, and some of those areas may be going well, some of those maybe you're saying, well, it's fine. but the thing is, how can you make each of those great? Really take a look at that and start to think about specific actions that you could take that will start you right now with making those areas great. And then I'll say I work with people that want to start a business. So I would ask them, great, so how is your business going to support those areas and those relationships? How's it going to challenge them? What can you put in place that's going to make it all work for you so everything is as great as you can, even greater than you could have imagined? and then finally, I would say, start to paint a picture for yourself about what do you want your life to look like in 2 years, in 5 years, like look farther out and actually sit down and maybe write a few paragraphs, like in 2 years I want da-da-da, in 5 years, da-da-da, so that it starts to get vivid for you. And so a bucket list is one thing, but if you really kind of go through some of the steps that I talked about, it's a chance for you to really start to get down into the details of getting a vivid picture of how you want your life to look.
Yeah, I think this all ties in to the theme of my magazine, which is Splendid Business and Life. So how do you create the life that you envision?
Yes.
That's what, the thrust of my magazine is, because I want to collect all the resources from all the wonderful people who have made a success of it. How did they do it? What are the tools and resources that we can access for that? And a large part of it is actually about the mind, the mindset, the thinking, and the heart. So
Yes.
I think sometimes we forget about that in business. So this is a great reminder. So thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome. And I'll even add one more thing to what you said.
Uh-huh.
If you're thinking about a business, that's all well and good, and you can put together a business plan, and you can talk about the things you need to do and all that sort of stuff. But here's what I want to say. When I work with people and they're just starting with a blank sheet of paper, the first thing we focus on is, what do you want for your life and your lifestyle? The big picture. And get really grounded in that. And then you start thinking about your business, because I'll tell you, you can get into a business and then find that your life's not working because what you've committed to and how you put it together isn't accomplishing what you want in that bigger picture of your whole life. And so you ignore getting grounded in your life and lifestyle goals first. You put at risk your success if you ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say.
Yeah. I think I think what you're saying is maybe like reverse engineering a little bit,
It
like
is.
from your final vision of what it is, and then how do you get to that vision? So if you want a lifestyle, business lifestyle that is, allows you more freedom and stuff, that means, what do you need to leverage? Right? What kind of systems or people, other people's resources and talents do you need to leverage?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
your business and your life. So what do you want? How do you want what do you want to build? How do you want it to all look? I'm completely with you. We're
Yeah.
very similar in this philosophy.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, I want to thank you because I see our time is coming up, and really appreciate you joining us on this call. Um, and then just so happy that you wrote that article. I read it, and I'll be having it in my magazine. So
No,
thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much, Eric.
Can I have like one more minute to
Yeah, sure. Have it to
sure,
wrap it up. Yeah.
sure. So how much time do you think we can take? A few or just a
Um,
minute?
just a minute would be good. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I would I would talk about being a catcher on the trapeze when I was in high school, and having people have the courage to fly and let go and get caught as a
Wow.
kind of a philosophy for this. But what I'll say is, if you're interested in finding more about me and what's going on with my business, you can visit freegiftsfromeric.com. That's gifts with an S and Eric with a C,
Mm-hmm.
and there you'll get a special report about the 5 steps to starting your business, and a free subscription to my newsletter, and the opportunity, if you want, to apply for a complimentary clarity conversation with me, where we'll get at what are the obstacles that you're facing with starting a business, and what's your best strategic next step. So that's freegiftsfromeric.com.
Oh,
So
thank
just
you.
offer
Yeah.
that to your listeners.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll also put it in the magazine as a link and in the YouTube video underneath there so that it's easier to find. All right.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. So just bye bye everybody. Thank you for listening and watching.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think um having a bucket list would help you in. Oops.
So hi, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, the mouse flew out of my hand, landed on
Yeah.
the floor, and closed the window. But luckily, I got back on.
Yes. Yeah, I saw your gesture and heard the sound, and I knew. So I was sharing with people that yeah, you'd be back soon.
Well, thank you. You handled that really well. Yeah, so